A very good morning to you, and thanks for joining us on yet another edition of Political Spectrum. We're coming to you live on Spectrum Television. I am Raymond Ita. We're putting you through with the day's political news stories and events, as of course the concern recent happenings in Nigeria, much of which are fixated on the just concluded general elections of February as well as March 2023. And while we're looking ahead to a hopefully seamless transition of power from one incumbent administration to another come May 29, there are issues surrounding the transition itself and the possibility of the new government at different levels. With respect to the federal character and the kind of appointments that would likely be made going into the incumbent administration at the national level, should competence favor national unity? Plus, Akwa Ibom states today and post-Dominion administration, what is the tax ahead for the incumbent administration of Pastor Basi Umoino here in Akwa Ibom State? We'll talk about all of these and more. I'll be joined when I come back from this short time out by citizen Matthew Kofi O'Connor. He's the founder of Open Forum and a public affairs commentator. He'll be joining us to bear his thoughts on these issues. So feel free to join us after the... Welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us. This is Political Spectrum on Spectrum Television with me, Raymond Ita. And don't forget, you can follow us via our social media platforms, and do well to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And Matthew Kofi O'Connor, founder Open Forum, welcome to Political Spectrum.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you join us as well. Everyone's counting down to the end of the current administration at the national level and in around a good number of states, where we're expecting some incumbent governors to give way for newly elected civilian governors in their respective states. We'll talk about Akwa Ibom State later, as we're also prepping up for the winding down of the Udom administration and what the expectations are of the governor-elect Pastor Umoino. But let's start at the national level, because recently the president-elect and the APC standard Federal Executive Council, or his cabinet as it were, he would favor competence over national unity. Because the question has been asked right from time, especially considering the very tickets that this administration could be riddled with wide-scale nepotism, so to say, rubbing off on the choices he would make in the course of selecting who would constitute the federal executive, cabinet. And he said it would rather prefer going for competence and persons with ability to national unity. Judging by Tinubu's take, would you agree that in terms of selecting public officers who would, keep up to speed with the task of, pushing through with the policies of government as it were, that we hope would affect positively of the people? In a country as polarized as Nigeria, would you favor the idea of going for competent hands as opposed to assuaging the feelings of the...
And when a thing is constitutional, a constitutional provision, is only expected that citizens and leaders should adhere to it. The principle of federal character, sorry, I didn't get to cross-check. I think section 381 or 318 sub 1 talks about the need to be sure that there are spreads of appointments to carry every section along, and specifically having to do with in the Executive Council. And you can't bypass that, except that some leaders have considered the federal character principle in some other appointments, like appointment of service chiefs, which is one of the low points in the current administration. We find that most of the services have been found. We still have insecurity ravaging the country, so you cannot give credit to whatever idea that gave rise to, pass the federal character principle in giving each state their slot. Then it goes beyond even giving each state their slot. Nigeria, we have some of the best crop of brains in the world. And there is virtually no state that you cannot find a competent person. Even if you have to go outside of your party, it's not enough that, oh, you've won election. People work for you, and it's time which one is juicy appointment or which one is not. So for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the president-elect, he, for me, made a very grave error to have said the reason why he was going for a Muslim ticket was that he could not find that kind of thinking, because there are 1,001, if not millions, of Christians that could have fitted in for a vice presidential candidate when you compare the person he picked and even the antecedents, the records of the person. So now he's a president-elect. Bearing whatever may happen, then should be able to set up his cabinet within the first 2 months, so that we not have the issue like it happened in 2015, where there was no ministerial appointment for about 6 to 9 months. At the point, I remember when they asked Mr. President, why don't you have ministers by now? He said, what do you mean of the system which culminated in so many things which has taken its toll on us? So there is no excuse.
What do you think was likely playing on President Buhari's mind that early years of his government? Do you think it was also a case of him pondering on that he wanted? So much so that at the end of the day, he allowed himself to remain Minister of Petroleum. Would you think that also contributed to the state of things that Nigeria has degenerated into under the Buhari administration?
Well, what I think was responsible for that was intra-party politics. You see, APC did not come on as a party. It came on as a vehicle that a number of parties needed to say, let us put money together and buy this vehicle and drive it to the destination. Smaller parties, remember the CPC, the ANPP, the NPDP, it's a faction of the PDP, which became the most, in fact, that's what gave them the edge, and some other parties like that. So, then the ACN, and nobody gave them a chance. Used it maximally, and at the end of the day, when power entered their hands, they were not unable to come to terms with, okay, this would get that, because things needed to be shared into those blocks. And getting over it, and considering maybe the preparedness of even Mr. President to have assumed power, he couldn't really grab it and run with it immediately, because one thing is to have power and be sacked even when they are unproductive. You find some person staying in the same office for 8 years. It has never happened. And then you look at what the people are doing, the kind of productivity they are brought in. Some of them are real big-time minors to the administration, but they are there. Why? And like even the Minister of Petroleum that Mr. President has kept, I'm not even sure that sometimes he remembers that he's the Minister of Petroleum.
Well, if the APC took its foundation from such roots, as you've clearly, described,
Yes.
You would say it is still on this basis that the party was formed and with which it has just won the last presidential elections on February 25. So is Bola Tinubu not going to be, faced with the same dilemma, urgence, and then we'll still have them in those respective offices for as long as they want, whether they're delivering or not?
No, I don't think so. Something happened in the 2023 general elections. Bola Tinubu did not run, not just as a APC candidate. Labour Party, PDP, the two major opposition parties, did not condemn the sitting government like Bola Tinubu did. And considering the fact that pulling the strings, prelude to the Congress, the primaries, he said clearly that he made Mr. President the president. Because he did this, he fell, thank you, President. And after making president, he did not give him a minister, he did not give him Gary, he did not give him soup. That was very strong statement, looking for party ticket. Going forward, he succeeded in getting a party ticket, even though the president and the party came up with a consensus candidate. So he was running on who he is, more like an independent candidate than, So, and for us that know Tinubu, the little that we know him, he is a very independent-minded person. He does not care how you feel when he wants to take a decision. That influenced the picking of a Muslim ticket, something that the president could not try in 2015. Remember, he was touted to have been the running mate, who was a former attorney general for him in Lagos State while he was the governor of Lagos State.
Meaning his party recognized the importance of not treading on dangerous waters by respecting the views of the generality of Nigerians. So why would he now, in turn, go around the party to disrespect, something that they so cherished, and then they allowed him get away with it?
That's why I said he is running on who he is. He's a very strong-willed person. Put Asiwaju Bola Tinubu in check, we'll be seeing, and if he does something wrong, and he wouldn't want to go back from it, we'll be seeing a dictator in civil rule. We don't just call it democracy because we are not practicing democracy yet, by my standard. The vote of the people is not counting as we will expect. Or gets out, or who votes, or who does not vote. So, his personality, his capacity, if it is channeled for reforms, purposeful, productive moves, we will have a wonderful time in Nigeria. But if it's the impunity of anything I want, I get, nobody can try anything, we are going to have a very tough time in the country because it's almost impossible to call some persons to order. And when you look at some persons that are around him, typically of Nigerians, if you are close to the corridor of power, you must not be sent, is not accepted. It's got to be 100%. And when you are showing loyalty 100%, and some even go extra mile to add Jara on top of the 100%, you can be sure that a leader that is failing give attention. They won't. So we are faced with a situation where the level of awareness and enlightenment and education by citizens should be stepped up to be able to hold the incoming administration accountable. What do I mean? Are you continuing with the policy of the last administration? We will say no, because he condemned the policies. He talked about the fuel, how it was mismanaged. He talked about the Naira crisis. His team even went to court and did what any other, even the opposition parties could not do. So would you want to address that? He talked about they met Naira at this and they took it to this. During the new economic policy that will bring down the exchange rate to about 300 Naira. And thereafter to further scale it down. That is a departure from the current dispensation. And how will you do that? Will you do that by keeping the same man who has plunged Nigeria to something that is worse than COVID under Naira change, which now we didn't even see the new Naira note, which we were told was all over the place. We had enough banks, businesses collapsed. No. So it's going to be a departure. But the departure we need is far beyond what we will say, let's allow him. He has the idea. Leadership is a collective responsibility. Citizens have their roles to play. So if they are unable to idolize, we become worshipped, and which is not the best. So the engagement has got to be intentional. You cannot run a federation with the principles of a unitary state. So anytime anybody in leadership position talks about the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the first thing I look at the person's face, I don't even know what you're talking about. We are a federation, we are running what we are running. So he has talked about restructuring in his manifesto. Now, how would you marry that? Your vice president, it was caught on tape, delivering a lecture or talking to the public is there. You go, will you see it? That anybody that talks about restructuring my foot, you say that in this country? That's well,
in the light of all of this, it also, how would you judge, the constitution of the respective federal cabinets that have served this country under different leaders, so much to arrive at an answer as to whether truly it is competence that delivers and not necessarily the sentiment of respecting the federal character or promoting or fostering national unity by ensuring that every region or state in the country is actually giving a sense of belonging through disappointment, giving every other person a sense of belonging by saying, let's have someone from your state, you know, in here. Because at the end of the day, whoever you're picking from that state still has to be someone, based on your description, who has to be 100% loyal to the government of the day. So it looks like even when going for competence, we still somehow mirror or factor in the issue of national unity by being very specific about who they actually go for, referring to the leaders now.
Well, there's, except somebody wants to hide in fact, you want to go by tribal sentiments, every tribe. But let's narrow down to states. Since we cannot run away from the federal character principle that the Federal Executive Council should be made up of members who are from the component 36 states. And you may not have full ministerial appointments in all. Some are ministers of state. Once you're a minister, forget about the nobody there. Nobody can ever say that. Or even you go to say, Imo State. We can't find somebody in Imo State. You can't say that. Talking about the national unity, during the military, let's go back to the some where the governors were appointed from different states. It was just a very rare feat that we have somebody like Johnson Kang, who was appointed to be a military administrator of Akwa Ibom State. It was interchanging. We have some of our sons who were governors in Ogun State, like Isame Wang. He was the governor of Rivers State. We also had John Ebiye here and others. And they did their best under a military kind of structure. But democracy or civil rule is not like that. And even to nominate a minister, except that when you have an opposition party at the center, it now becomes, they now have to look away from the governor. Otherwise, if the ruling party, the president would tell the governor, send in your nominees, maybe 2, 3 names. And in some cases, like they will do, because they say politics is a game of interest. Send 3 names, they will send the first name, Raymonita, second name, Raymonita, third name, Raymonita. No option. Why? Either because the person is competent, this one we can trust, or 2, this is a loyal party man who worked and should be rewarded. So we should be able to separate the rewards becomes paramount. He worked or he gave the highest contribution. He's a businessman, he has money, or he has been in politics. Anyway, businessmen don't have money again. These politicians that control the money because politics has made so lucrative that people get ready to kill to get into there. So we need to separate reward system when we are doing leadership recruitment deliver. Otherwise, it becomes a problem. For instance, like instead of having an information minister, I have been appalled. The quality of what people consider as the best for information, either commissioner or minister, is somebody that can abuse people, is somebody that can even lie, talk about things that don't exist as if they exist. And that's supposed to be the image maker, the image of any administration. So going forward, I would want to see a minister of information such that when you see him, his courage, his tone, the result he brings, rubs out of 100 things they say, about 70 will be nothing but propaganda. You can run propaganda when you are doing campaigns. You can afford to do that because you need to just dig up some things or say some things and later you go to apologize. Like, remember what happened between Otom and Oshomole? The things Oshomole said about Otom, eventually he went to apologize to the man. Very terrible things. But thank God he owned up. And that is very rare to I must commend Oshomole for having done that. That was, I think, before we got into 2019 election. So we need to separate leadership recruitment from the reward system. The reward system does not reward excellence. That is the truth.
Well, there's been that argument about the role that technocrats to be given political appointments. Some would say to a great extent, we saw some level of development in the respective ministries where it seemed it was the professionals who were calling the shots. And I don't know if it would come as a dismay to most Nigerians that we have thought having someone who has retained him throughout the entire period of his administration would have saw some kind of benefit from the nation's commercial apex bank. But we haven't really seen that. If for anything, Nigerians were disgruntled by the recent Naira redesign policy of the CBN, which many have fingered and blamed Mr. Miefele for. And I wonder if going forward, it will, help the cause of those who say allow more.
Is in the banking sector, and the current administration inherited him from the previous administration, which was strange. Whatever gave rise to that, I think those that may know more than us will know better. And for me, I've not been able to pinpoint a particular thing that he did to be so celebrated, to be retained. Naira under Jonathan was 180 something, less than 200 Naira to $1. And that was very consistent. We were rated as on the fastest growing economy in Africa. About number one is that the Naira crashed. And when we heard about so much borrowing, and there was something called, what I remember the term now, ways and means. Some people today, they don't even know what that means. It was the governor of Delta, Edo State, who announced sweating. He was condemning why the governor should say that kind of thing. And some persons that even care to ask what you're talking about. You work for money. You don't print money secretly to give. Is it not until the thing approval is needed, added to the trillions of loans that are gotten, and a deadline was given? National Assembly, if you don't approve this thing between now and that a bold person like Obaseki brought out, which he denied initially, is now a thing that they took to National Assembly. Then going forward, we're going to the, and unless I've settled, there's no going back. I said to myself, they must have printed enough. It's going to be sudden, because if you want to arrest an armed robber, you don't start from the far distance to blow anybody that wants to escape. You are under arrest. He never did, and he plunged the country into the worst mess that can, in fact, worse than COVID by my standard. So it's not a matter, oh, he's a technocrat that has been this. The box has exhausted whatever he has. You ease him out. Why must you retain people just because they have political value? If I remove him now, you go and join opposition. That is what is happening. So even at the state level, we have some persons that have been commissioners for 10 years. Some maybe going to 13 years. And some who have left, they are coming to the administration. Even those that are eased out are giving appointments lower than what they were, because, like I heard somebody said, what we need is a government plate number. We are afraid of the next election, not the well-being of the people. Even during the elections, you find people in public offices being given party positions. Look at somebody like Keyamo. Nobody hears him, knows that he's the Minister of State for Labor, one of the ministries that has not delivered. He is a spokesman. One of the spokesmen. Do they work in the ministry? No. You can't say they are working.
What would you now say is largely responsible for all of this? Do you also feel the Nigerian people have a role to play in all of this? Judging it was to appoint an opponent in that post, the former EFCC chairman Nuhu Ribadu, into his cabinet, and we know it drew some level of criticisms from then supporters of the ACN, various presidential candidate, appoints his opponent into his government. And we have thought this would breathe a fresh air of life into how governance is done in Nigeria. But since that time, we've not seen anyone come close to repeating, what Jonathan did, which to some persons was more or less going for a competent hands and not necessarily someone within his party to be compensated for supporting him in the course of that post. So why do you think we've not, gone beyond that level up until today?
I'm trying to, I can't remember what else did they come to do, but that's not neither here nor there. What I remember about a very clear opposition figure that was appointed into governance was under Obasanjo, Bola Ige. They were not on the same platform, opposing parties, opposing interests, but he was made the Attorney General. Unfortunately, he died, and the circumstances is still being queried till tomorrow. What does it mean to have somebody in the opposition, opposition parties being appointed into a government? You were looking at the government of national unity. And some persons are clamoring for that now because the 2023 elections has divided the country more than what we can ever imagine, except those that want to laugh. The party that has been declared winner will now reach out to opposition. Please send me the list of your appointees. And for you, I want you to handle this. You, presidential candidate, please. Political identities. But are we mature to that extent? Nobody wants you to query him, even when he's doing wrong. And a number of persons that somebody appointed from the PDP into the government of, I think President Buhari, isn't it? Our Senator Udodoma. He wasn't a member of the APC. And at the point I said there was interview, he said, you are a member? He said, I'm not a member of the APC. I'm a minister for budget and planning. And I'm not a party man and all of that. And given his nature and all that, he's not, he's a very urban human being. So they appointed as the SSA to the president on National Assembly. There was no clear defection. You understand? At least 2 cases until he now became a full party member and all of that. So government of national unity is quite different. But are we matured enough for that? What will have given rise to that? You see, the election petition is such that some persons feel they have enough evidence that will upturn things. And if you have such prospect, no matter how you dangle the issue of government of national unity, pain and the trauma may not even allow the person to say, oh, let's still consider government of national unity. But that is neither here nor there. The most important thing is, I've said, we must be able to separate the reward system from, political appointment, which must, whether through propaganda or fighting or causing mayhem or doing some secret things that some persons may never know, you will never have results.
Interestingly, well, just for confirmation, Ribadu was in charge of the Petroleum Revenue Special Tax Force scheme under the Jonathan administration.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
it wasn't really popular.
Let's wrap up on the first discussion here around Tinubu. One of the interesting things we're already looking ahead to is the size of the budgets that we would be seeing under the Tinubu administration. One of the presidential aides recently, Adamu Garba, recently came out to say that the Buhari administration has been hovering around 18 to 22 trillion naira budget every year. But he says to, put Nigeria back on track. And it led to some laughable remarks, coming from some quarters as to why they would need that much money to be able to, get through with us going forward. Do you think we're looking at an economic catastrophe if we ever allow such, an initiative to go through, having to run this country on a budget of between 50 to 100 trillion naira? It could lead to, first and foremost, a much bigger bureaucracy. We've already talked about, you mentioned having a minister and a minister of state already. By everyone's yearnings that you would be carried along because you supported this administration.
Who made that statement about the...
Adamu Garba.
Adamu Garba. I want to agree with him to an extent. Than the budget that some other countries are making for far less number of citizens. But my fear is that we have to concentrate on the elections, and the opposition parties did not talk about the state of the economy as they should to paint the right picture of where we are. The World Bank has given out its data that by 2024, and that's we are talking about next year, 100% of our revenue will not be able to service our debt. Currently, we are serving our debt with almost 80 to 90, if not more, percent. Whatever we make, we are using to service debt. And there are clear lootings. The oil sector, at the point where our OPEC quota to about between 1.9 million to maybe 2 point something million barrels per day, but we could not meet our quota because more than half of our oil, crude oil, is stolen. And we saw a documentary on that. They know the buyers. They know how much. And nobody's doing anything. You go to what is called fuel subsidy. Clearly termed a scam, 2014-2015. And subsidy was not made provision for, as Mr. President started governance in 2015. Until they discovered that truly there was subsidy, but this subsidy was not as much as we had said. So what stops us from stepping up? So from the about 28 million liters per day to 30-something million liters per day consumption rate under Jonathan, this administration took it. Officially, they say it's about 60. Unofficially, we are hearing that it's something close to 70 to 100 million liters per day. What we are paying subsidy for, which is nothing else than what Mr. President had called it from day one, a scam. So those leaking unattractive. The millionaires that we have in this country are now politicians, no longer businessmen or those working in the oil industry. Why? Because once you are in public office, you can be sure that in the next 3 months, you will build a mansion and you start having fleet of cars in your compound because it's a mental illness. Poverty awaits everybody in Nigeria because it is not normal. People judge their worth by mundane things. So, if you are really planning for 200 million persons, and you're talking about development, our budget that we are making cannot bring us development. And when you also consider that even the budget that is made is looted, look at Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. They did a budget. God knows, only God knows how much the budget is, because what is trending was the padded fund, 206 billion. The minister went to the National Assembly to go and defend our budget. They asked her, Elijah Abu asked, Madam Minister, this 260 billion in this budget, say go back, find out what that money is for, and come back and tell us. Remember what she came back to tell them? That money was put there by Minister of Finance. It is to buy military weapons. In Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. And they said, Madam Minister, but you can't say this now. Would you imagine the number of budgets that such things have gone into?
Well, if in the face of that, as you have said,
Yes.
You started off by saying you, to an extent, supported Adamu Garba.
The kind of development that we need.
Well, after identifying some of these challenges,
Yes.
such as inability to close those loopholes, you know, that people have over the years unfortunately exploited, should we still have this, you know, huge and large budget, knowing it's still, you know, exposed to negative vices or possibly looting by public office holders?
So that's why we say when you block the leakages, and not even that, it goes beyond block the leakages. Even the what is called immunity clause. A criminal is a criminal. If you give him that protection, there's nothing you won't do. Protect him from civil litigations and not criminal matters. You can't be a governor or president and kill or steal. Then nobody can touch you. No, there are some things that we have constitutionally approved corruption. We need to have, what do you call it now, dedicated courts for different cases, so that either constitutional court for constitutional matters and the same person who has been caught over billions stolen will be recycled in the system till it will become useful to another party, and the next moment the court will naturally just say we have not found anything against him and all of that, because this man is used to the party. So you have to give him soft landing. It's been happening. It will keep on happening until we have a leader who has the political will to demand productivity. Mind you, there is no looter. There's no person with criminal tendency that can be productive. He sees productivity as apart from plucking the loopholes. I agree with Garba that our budget size does not fit the country. But going beyond that, until we decentralize the system of the governors going to Abuja every 21 days or every month, cap in hand, the unitary system, states would not develop. When states develop, investment will come in. There will be more production. People will be engaged to make profit. Even be on a part-time, cut the costs, make it less attractive, so that a number of these persons are going to Abuja to while away time and go to look for investments and look for juicy committees like they call it, will be back in their state to struggle what is there and see how to add value and be relevant. Google it. How productive are they? So, apart from plucking those loopholes, cutting costs here and there, a president or a governor must have the political will to, one, fight if we have a government that wants to recover stolen funds through the oil sector, through like what happened at NDDC. One of the best things this government administration has done under Buhari was the forensic probe of the NDDC. The government is leaving, the board has been appointed, the report is not released, and nothing has been done. And I tell you sincerely, it will be an immortal indictment. Percentage of these funds, looted funds are not normally used. They are stocked away. That's why you don't find money in the system. The oil sector, those who have done this research can tell you how much has been stolen in the last 9 years, in the last 20 years. And they can trace to where those monies are. The people responsible, involved in the international community. I know some of them are part of the whole deal, but with public outcry, there will be reparation of those resources. Some persons will go to jail in their various countries and they will fear, Nigeria, don't go there. We have a brand new country, and guess what? We have to support them. Court processes, we are going to settle down to governance. No more politicking. The president must have the political will to step on toes. Don't say, oh, my party person. Once you bring that in, Nigeria will be in trouble.
All right, we'll hold our thoughts on that. When we come back from this very short break, we'll be diverting our attention. This governor-elect Pastor Moina and mirroring Akwabam State today. What are the tasks ahead of the incoming governor? We'll talk about this when we come back. Stay with us. Political Spectrum will return.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian. From issues on politics,
hello Nigeria, I remain committed.
Security, education, health, lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
If your product and services are pitched on a platform that gives you the added advantage over your competitors, for your desired return on investment and so much more, advertise on Spectrum Television, on StarTime's DTH Channel 421 and on free-to-air with a frequency of 12733. Spectrum Television, broadening your horizon.
Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
back, and many thanks for staying with us. You're still watching Political Spectrum on Spectrum Television with me, Raymond Ater. A quick reminder of our major discussions this morning. President-elect, when he, of course, takes over from President Buhari come May 29. We've been mirroring these issues and asking if competence should favor national unity when making these appointments. We'll turn the conversation back home here in Akwa Ibom State, where we're equally Governor Udom Emmanuel come May 29. Well, we know a major bane of development in Nigeria over the years has been the proclivity by successors to discard programs and projects of their predecessors, no matter how lofty and beneficial most of these projects are, for the vainglorious pursuit, and that was continuity, something he says he would foster throughout his administration, meaning he would ensure that projects initiated by this administration but not completed will be furthered by his own government. Well, the last few days of the Udom Emmanuel administration has been characterized by promises by the incumbents that he will complete every project his administration has initiated. So, Akwa Ibom State today, between now and May 29, when Pastor Moino would take over, what are the tasks ahead of the incoming administration? Always station down to Akwa Ibom State now. It's more or less the same challenges for the incoming governor as we've discussed for the incoming president. He also has to make appointments into the state executive council. Usually the tradition at some state levels is leftovers, as I like to call them. Whatever setup was in place, they usually follow up with that for 6 months, 1 year, or a year and a half, as the case may be, before they start bringing in their own men. It seems to have been a tradition over the years. I don't know, we're not going to talk about whether it has been a success or not, but would you favor that line of succession in terms of the new administration kickstarting its own government after taking over from the previous one, looking at Akwa Ibom State today?
Well, thank you very much. I am one of the proponents of our state, a predicting unit, but we are so endowed such that even our budget is about 30-35% less than the budget of Rwanda. And when you know that Rwanda is a country, one of the most successful stories in Africa, you will now have to look inwards. A quack to want to destroy the foundation that was laid for Akwa Ibom in terms of, like from Obongota in particular, this particular Fourth Republic, the democratic dispensation. We have, well, the implementation of the plan in terms of infrastructures has been wonderful. Anybody that says Akwa Ibom State does not have roads, is not fair to the administrations, right from even the military. But going forward, Uyo is taking shape. And when you get to know that there are many streets, until those streets are made, it's like, oh, we still don't have. When they come in, they wonder if we are part of Nigeria. Yeah, it's as good as that when it comes to that. But it goes beyond that. Governance is not just about infrastructures. Governance is a Obongota has laid the foundation such that it was receptive to ideas. Enough that some institutions were born out of proposals brought by people. I don't want to name them. I know them. Proposals that people made. Very receptive. He didn't even need to be a member of his party or whatever. I mentioned, I can feel free to even mention somebody like Patrick Eputu became a commissioner, finally became a deputy governor. People should bring value to the table. But that has not really been the case over time. Because, like I said much earlier, some persons have become permanent commissioners. They can't go lower. If they go lower, even if you look at some posts after the elections, you find people campaigning for their choice secretary to government, choice chief of staff, the same age that have been writing, promoting the government, the candidate. Election, he has won, and they are now the ones nominating people. It looks strange. It never used to be. So the candidate has now been stampeded. He's been bullied. This is the person you should appoint a SSG, because it shows that there's a disconnect somewhere. And if such persons are not, the status of the office is not good enough. You know, like you said, Umoino is not coming from another party platform. He wasn't campaigning against the governor's choice and he emerged. He was the governor's anointed. And so much infighting, eventually he scaled through the nomination, through the courts, through the election, and has won. Apart from that, in terms of appointment, how productive have been members of the current cabinet? You must not, for any reason, shy away from being bold to say yes. Some sectors have performed, some have not. Some are using birthdays, attending church ceremonies to project their ministries. Some commissioners are not even known. Even if they are working among people, they are not known. The productivity level does not meet my standard.
So, there was a time in the States where there was an argument about whether most of these ministries were getting adequate funding, as to that being the reason why there's not been some level of progress. I remember the governor even had to come out during an event at the banquet hall. I remember was there that day, and he specifically said all the ministries in the state have been well financed. Any commissioner who tells you there's no money in our local parlance, yes, is lying. So, I mean, he said that in the full glare of the commissioners. I wonder if, while we can't tell if there was any truth, you know, to that, but that was a very bold and assertive statement to make by the governor. But it also begs the question, if this was much steps to address these issues, because we still find these same men in these positions, some of them recycled to other ministries, but basically still the same hands. While responding to that, I also like you to factor in whether here in the state you have some tribes, you know, feigning marginalization and not being carried along in the scheme of things. Sometime at the end of the day, you have appointment being made into as commissioners. You have some local governments who have hardly ever, you know, been given appointment as commissioners or to serve in such capacities. Why is this the case at the state level?
What he's supposed to look at, every sector, he must have an agenda. He must be able to appraise what has happened. He will have a report, all the projects per ministry, the level of productivity, which people shy away from, don't want to talk about it. And then the issue of Mkpoibara. Mkpoibara was a mantra. And by the time people got to know that there were some monies that came into the state through the areas of derivation that were not paid, and the court judgment was given, and one thing led to another, it became virtually a scandal to say that in the midst of billions that have been gotten by, and when you talk with some persons one-on-one, you know, one thing in the political system is that you are not allowed, you must not speak evil because you are in the system. You must protect the system. The system is not good, but this is what we are eating from. I've had encounters with a number of them. So many hypocrites, so many people that are not even salaries and allowances and toll expenses still come. Free vehicle, free diesel, free everything, and all of that. So they don't care about service delivery. Anybody who is productive, because there's no way you should be able to bring a good idea that will bring development or even attract funding from particular sources and add value, that a governor will say, I don't want to do, or looks away. No. If you, so much negative image has been painted on the administration on Mkpoibara, and it erupted on society. If somebody tells that we are doing well as a people, that person is either part of the system or does not speak the truth. There's so much poverty, I can tell you that. Forward, look at things on merit. Listen to what people say. Nobody knows everything. A leader that will not take ideas or will not promote creativity is not a leader. I love what Salt. He told him that he should read his mails. I read that, and I loved what I heard. Because people like us have said under Bongo timing, you don't see reply. even something that even concerns government, even to protect their image, even to promote the administration. You don't. How can you? It's not everybody that will be in government. There are people that will stay in the private sector and make contributions. There should be a channel. And that's why you need to build institutions. We have not been building institutions. In Akwa Ibom, we've been building individuals. And some of these individuals have become so powerful that even government cannot do without them. So, Omoino should look at information. There's no strategy there. Bureau of Strategy, or even an office to be under the governor. We have to generate ideas. It's not about propaganda. It's not about trying to address image of government. If you do the right thing, it's the citizen.
Not holding forth for the government here, but in a time where people have been calling for, downsizing, or cutting down on the cost of governance, it has perhaps given, credence to the argument of those who say merging ministries is the best way to go, to deal with that. So would you say that's a problem?
Even we in Open Forum, we've done that. We have tons of communiques which are available to governments for free, which have not even been adopted. One of it is that you need to merge ministries. You need to create new ones, like public issues that concern citizens and to fight corruption. We hardly talk about fighting corruption here in the state. So we need to build that institution. Like the Office of the Deputy Governor, I am a proponent that the Office of the Deputy Governor, another responsibility apart from boundary issues, should be added. A number of ministries should be merged. Remember, we had the Akpaneko post-COVID economic reconstruction committee report. That report, for the best that I know, has not been implemented. It talked about cutting costs. But while that report was there, we had even more ministries. Like we talked about the national federal character at the state level. We have Uyo has 2 commissioners. Maybe it came out of error. One person will have gone and maybe he couldn't go again. And you have 2. Some other governments don't have.
I know you don't feel that
because they are power plays. A number of these commissioners, they come from blocks. They come from interest. Until we have a situation where the governor would decide, I'm appointing my cabinet. And I thank all of those who have contributed to the movement of the state forward. And now we're going to appoint a cabinet. There's nothing wrong in telling maybe 1 or 2 persons, sir, please, can you nominate somebody for me from your side and all of that? But you need to know the psychology, you need to know the politics, you need to know the system that operates the local government area, independent of whatever your clothes aides that you came to inherit tell you. Otherwise, even crisis there, you will not be able to solve because you are coming in on merit, not because you did so much propaganda. As we speak now, some persons are writing the kind of things as if Omoino is doing campaign. Election has finished. People are writing, saying what he is going to do and what he has done. And some of those things are even ready for commissioning on social media. And it's irritating. The new cabinet should reflect, one, the state character. It will be in government. But because people can hardly make it outside government, and a number of persons cannot staff like us, who are willing to speak truth to power, and you'll be branded. You are anti-system. And for some of us, we have our agenda. We have our calling from God, and you cannot bring your mold to say you fit in here because you must fit into what we do. If you do that, there are a number of persons that will not be able to do that. As long as our contribution is to help you succeed, that's what we keep on doing. So, Pastor Moino, like Open Forum, we had, because of the elections and other matters, the leadership had to say, let us keep it. We are going to push it to the administration. We have to have a master plan. We cannot develop as a state with ideas from people campaigning for offices. When I come, I'll do this. Plans on various sectors. We have an education master plan. It's first class, but it's not been implemented as it should. It's not. It's put together by this administration under Professor Hilary Young, who was the chairman. I was privileged to have been appointed into the technical team as the community affiliate. I don't think there's any state, even Nigeria doesn't have that kind of, according to the master plan, not election promises. No.
Okay.
We cannot operate because somebody said, when I come, I'll do this.
I'll let you conclude on this very quickly because we're wrapping up now. Whether intentional or coincidental, the Arise agenda of the incoming administration somewhat coincides with the Dakada philosophy of Governor Emmanuel. I don't know if this is something they both thought out together, or it's genuinely, independent initiatives that have just somewhat, come together.
I like
going forward, do you think it's something Akwaba might that will play on the minds of Akwaba might? Because a lot of bad blood, we have to say, were generated in the course of betterment and development of the state. How do you see Akwaba might under the incoming administration of Pastor Moina? Do you envisage that it will be welcomed with open hands and everyone would want to team along with whatever concepts or initiatives or programs that he's coming on board with?
Well, I've said this before, I'm saying so again. Some of our leaders, or a number of our leaders, or most of our leaders, are not able to separate personal politics and governance. As soon as the governor is sworn in, even while the case is in court, all hands must be on deck to make sure he succeeds. Because the failure of a governor or anybody in power rubs off on citizens. It's not a private business that, oh, it's his money. If he doesn't know how to run that shop, he will stay hungry. No. The losses, so it's a clear issue of saying, I am continuing with the Dakada philosophy. But when you also look at the Dakada philosophy, I see that achieved its aim. By my standard, it does not. Dakada is not about Udom to stand up. It's not about our others who are in government who have made it to stand up. It is to inspire the citizens. Have the citizens been inspired enough? Are there some with ideas? Are there some that can be assisted to be models that you can give account tomorrow and said, this number of persons were beneficiaries of the Dakada and here they are? No. So we must go beyond just a mantra. We must be very practical. Outside of that, all right, it will be business as usual. So citizens should be able to engage. They ran and left you. I was the one that was there. I thought I was almost killed. No.
All right. We'll just have to pause our thoughts on that because we have to wrap up right now. But I have to say many thanks indeed, Citizen Marty Kofi O'Connell, founder Open Forum, for joining us on Political Spectrum
today. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here.
All right, that's the size of the program for today, but we'll be back on your screens tomorrow. Keep updated with us if you can. The Blood and the Cam is up next with Business 360. For me, Raymond, Ita, and the rest of the crew, thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day.